Blau und weiß sein Leben lang. Hallo meine Leute. Willkommen zum das einzige Schalke Podcast auf English. That's right, folks. Officially the world's only English Schalke podcast. This is episode 115 of SchalkeMerica, and I'm your host, Richard Kharman. Joining me, as always, on the show is Jack Mangan. Jack, a very special deadline day episode, also known as our normal Monday slot. How you doing, man?
Dude, okay, yeah. I wish there was more that took place on the deadline day that we were going to be excited about. At least, I don't know. Well, I guess I don't know what your opinions are yet, but it was more just things that happened as opposed to things that we can really be encouraged by.
And some things that didn't happen, right? We're kind of expecting some moves to happen, and some did, some didn't. We can get all into that, but there was a little matter of a game that we had this past weekend that started well, didn't end well. It was very much reminiscent of our 2020 campaign or last year's campaign. So obviously we're talking about the game against Bremen. And looking at the lineups of this one we would be at home with a newer pitch as opposed to the game, the turf that was out there for the Bayern matchup. To start with the road team's lineup, they came out in a 3-5-2. Pavlenka in goal. They had a back three of Velkovic, Toprak, and Friedel. Midfield five of Gebre Selassie, Bittencourt, Egestein, Mbaum, and Agu. And then up top, they had Schmidt and Sargent. Starting off with that lineup, Egestein is somebody who we've also known for a while, who's always tormented us. And Bittencourt's another name that's a guy who's been playing well against us. What was your initial thoughts of the lineup when you saw it for the road team?
Milo Rashica, another guy that I always like whenever I see him, or at least whenever I see him against us. He started on the bench, but ultimately came on later. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting just from the American perspective because it's two German teams that are both featuring an American striker, which is just kind of weird to see. So, I mean, for all of the just U.S. men's national team fans that were watching this game as neutrals, I hope those people get the help that they need because they need help. Anyone like voluntarily watching this game with no club affiliation, anyway. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's probably mostly what we would have expected, and a lot of names we're familiar with in there as well. I think a couple of the talking points are still on the Schalke side more, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting how I was like at the opening, just before the opening kickoff, you see Sargent smiling up with somebody and giving dap, and like, who's he talking to? Oh, Hoppe, of course. Who else, right? Two Americans there. Looking at our lineup, went with a 4-2-3-1. Ferriman in net once again. Back for similar as last week as Becker, Kabak, Nastasic, and Kolasinac. Two holding midfielders of Stambouli and Mascarell, and then an attacking trio of Schoff, Ut, and Harit, all led by Matthew Hoppe. Curious on your thoughts on this lineup for Schalke. A fairly standard lineup, but I'm curious what your thoughts are with Mascarell and Schoff being in the lineup.
Yeah, so no Williams, so the new man doesn't get in right from the start. No Klaas-Jan Huntelaar from the start there either. It's once again Matthew Hoppe up top. Schupp, I continue to like never really know how I feel about him. I have such a love and like hate relationship with this guy. Like he'll have like a game or two where I feel like he's providing some utility and putting in a shift, and he's contributing to some good things. But it seems as though like for him to really be effective, there needs to be like that sort of structure around him. The team needs to be playing like decently well for that to like really matter. And too often, we're just not good enough in general. And so the things that he brings don't really help. So yeah, Schupp is Rudy light. Yeah. I mean, he certainly works much harder than Rudy in my opinion, but yes, I mean, it's just not ideal, but you're playing a 4-2-3-1 and your wingers are Harit, who, I mean, he's looked okay out on the left recently, and there's been some success there, but he's not really you wouldn't say that he's a winger as his primary position, and you probably wouldn't call Schupp really a winger either. This just goes once again to the poor squad planning, and like we're playing a formation for which our squad is not suited.
Yeah, and 100%. And I had this conversation with somebody. I don't know if it was on Twitter or where it was, but it was about Alexander Schoff. It might have been Reddit. And people, they asked me about my thoughts on him. And I'm like, just same kind of what you're saying. Like sometimes I think really good things about him. Other times I'm like, what the hell? He certainly never lived up to the hype that he came out with. And he obviously has a lot of talent. Never quite made it to the potential that he had. At times he shows glimpses of that, and we're like, okay, he's got some stuff. He's got obviously got some ball skill, can shoot it at times, but then other times he just disappears into the void, and you're like, is he even playing?
He gets call-ups to his national team and looks okay at times too. So it's just it's weird the disparity between that and the club form.
And I think you hit the nail on the head about the positioning, right? They play him in a position that he's really not maybe suited for, not really a winger. And you do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do and try to make the best of your situation. But ideally, if he was in a position more suited for him, maybe he would have better results. I don't know, but it's always his career at Schalke has been it's just been wafy. I mean, I don't know. It's sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's just like nothing special.
Just whenever he's in the lineup, it's never because he's like your first choice guy that you want in the lineup. He's just kind of because that's who's available. Or, we need like some fresh legs or something. He's never really been able to put together like enough of a run of form for you to say like, okay, this actually is like a starting 11 player for us going forward, or should be valued that way.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I was happy otherwise with the lineup. I was hoping I knew Huntelaar was not going to start in this one. It wouldn't make sense that he would start. I was hoping to see him earlier in the game than we did. But overall, as the game unfolded,
The one question I have real quick: were Serdar and Bozdogan hurt or otherwise like ill or something?
I doubt Bozdogan will, but Serdar, I don't know. I know Rahman was maybe injured before, but.
Okay, because neither of them were in the matchday squad, and I guess I just feel as though at the moment, like a Mascarell Stambouli, holding midfield pairing is not my ideal. Yeah, maybe for either of them, but
I feel like I heard Serdar got hurt in the Bayern game last week. But maybe I'm just making this up, so I'm not sure. But I think the game started out well for us, right? The first half was certainly of the better of the two halves. It was very emblematic of the first half of last season, where we looked good. I think at some point we were up to like 70% possession in the first half. We were not really doing much with our chances. I mean, probably some of the better chances came from Timo Becker and maybe Harit from distance. Nothing really that threatened Pavlenka too much. But I think we had good possession. We kept trying to cycle out to the ball. To the right-hand side, to Jake's point, our build-up in the first half, it confused him. It felt like we kept trying to force it up to the right-hand side with Becker and Schulp, rarely to the left with Seo and Harit. And I thought that was interesting because you would think you would want it on if you had to choose between the two pairings, Seo and Harit are probably the better option. I thought Harit was very quiet in this game, and part of it could have been because they kept focusing down the right-hand side with Becker and Schulp. I don't know. Maybe they saw something in the build-up to the game that they saw that was the area to exploit, but leaving Kolasinac and Harit pretty much left themselves in the first half confused me. Despite that, though, the first half ended well. I mean, overall, it was fairly good, I thought.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and it's quite possible that maybe I just wasn't paying attention and didn't notice if Bremen were taking specific actions to take that side of the field away, which if they were, I wouldn't be surprised because that's probably what I would do as well. But yeah, as you said, the stack sort of Becker and Schupf is not your ideal, building mechanism. I mean, if you're going to go down one of the flanks, it would almost certainly want to be, Zhiyun and Amin, and that's part of the reason we brought Kolasinac in anyways, at least in my opinion, is the lack of contribution going forward from Oczipka early in the season, and so now the last couple games it seems like Zhiyun's like contributions in those areas have dipped a little bit. Like his first game, he made like a huge impact, right? And it's kind of been like tapering off a little bit, and he's kind of been settling in. So yeah I would agree that emphasis on the right hand side was frustrating. Although I will give Becker a little bit of credit because I do feel like he has been improving almost every game a little bit in terms of how competent he is combining with his teammates and actually getting a little bit further up and offering a pivot, that kind of thing. So I do think as time goes on, he's doing a little bit better.
We got a comment from Lars saying playing Harit on the wing is a big mistake. He should be placed with Ut in the 10th spot. Our midfield is just not working out, and it's a fair comment. By the way, shout out to anyone watching on Periscope, on Twitter, Facebook, or here on YouTube Live for our podcast. Yeah, it's a fair comment there by Lars. Like I said, we said in the first couple of games when Harit was playing on the left-hand side that he was finding his way into the middle. In that game that Hoppe had the hat trick, he kept going into the middle and created some good things. And we didn't see that in the last couple of games, certainly not in this game. It was fairly quiet for most of the game. It was probably not until the goal, which we're going to already talk about, that I even noticed he was on the pitch. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot he was on the pitch at all. Funny enough, he was on the right-hand side for this one. It was a nice build-up play by Schalke. Like I said, that first half, we had pretty good spells in the Bremen half, and eventually, Schulp, the ball was led up to the right-hand side. Schopp gave it off to Becker. Becker gave it to Harit, of all people, on the right-hand side. And Harit finds Mascarell for the first goal of the season for him. Nice play overall by Schalke. Nice finish by the captain, or I don't even know who's captain anymore. But Harit, making moves, being mobile, and finding the open man there.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely kind of became a little bit of a broken play a little bit later into it. But Harit actually, I think, was waiting for that pass for a while, and he was kind of getting held up, and finally Becker decided to play it.
Yeah.
But it's really good awareness from Harit, because he doesn't take a lot of time to recognize and react to Mascarell calling for it, and he's looking like the opposite direction, right? So for him to turn his head in and fire that as quickly as he did while that space was there was impressive by him. And then it's a really nice shot from Mascarell. Who would have thought that would be the goal scorer? That was certainly an unlikely one there, but hits it well. And I mean, you love to see that little bit of a trailing run late, arriving top of the box from midfielder, and makes no mistake about it, man. And you could tell he was really excited about it. It meant a lot to him. So good to see.
And I think just as good a play was, I believe it was Alexander Schopp who let the ball go by him. I mean, he easily could have taken that ball and tried to take a shot there, but he let it go right behind him. Maybe he heard Mascarell calling for it. And like you said, Mascarell put it away. Very, very good shot overall. And so, yeah, going up 1-0, holding on to that lead, going into halftime. I felt good at that point. I thought we were playing the way we should have against Bremen. If we could continue that going into the second half, I thought it could have ended with a good result.
So I as you know, I disagreed slightly because we talked. Yeah, we were talking in Slack at halftime briefly, and my take was more that I felt like Bremen came out and just had very little activity of any kind. There was no ball pressure. I mean, they were basically, Sargent and Schmid initially were kind of setting up shop right at the midfield line, and they weren't actually trying to put pressure on the center backs with the ball. They're mostly sitting off and trying to cover the double pivot of Stambouli and Mascarell and deny ball there and force it out to the wings, which is partially why so much of our buildup was down there. But I didn't think they were convincing on the counter, and I just didn't think there was very much energy going on at all from them. I was pretty shocked. I mean, Kofeld looked like he was furious, and I was kind of with him. I was wondering what was really going on. Yeah. And so I was concerned that, if they turned it around and actually got into this game, it was less about us really playing well and more that the game was just being handed to us. And so I was concerned about how we would react. And unfortunately, it kind of ended up going up on that way.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, it did seem like almost Bremen was like, hey, go waste all your energy on us. And, come second half, we're going to turn it on and see if you can hold it, withstand us. And the second half was a complete opposite in terms of possession, in terms of attack. The whole half pretty much, so they were in our half, just constantly, threat after threat. I thought Fairman actually had a pretty good game, and he's kind of been, some people giving him the blame over this, whole run in the last, since Gross has been here, but he's been playing pretty well, I thought. And I thought in this game he had some big saves, had a big save late in the game that will, it should be brought up, should be mentioned, because it was a fantastic header, I think, past Nastasic. Going top corner, and Fairman made a great save on that. But, overall, I thought he had a pretty good game. I was wondering, before they scored their goal, when are we going to see Huntelaar? It's getting late in the game. You started to see him warming up around the 70th minute or so, and you're like, okay, when is he coming in? Is he coming in? It's still too late. I would run him on 65th minute. That's me, though. I'm obviously not a manager. I don't get paid for this kind of stuff, but this is what I'm looking at. I want someone who can score on the pitch as soon as possible. Seemed like Hoppe was getting out of the game, wasn't getting fed the way he should be, and maybe Hunter could come on and change things up some way, dynamic and dynamicism, everything. But what we did see, constant pressure. That save by Fairman was in the 75th minute, and when I saw that save, I thought, okay, maybe this is our day. Stupid of me to think of that, because just 2 minutes later they come down the pitch. Rashica, the man you talk about, gets fed a nice ball, holds the ball up well, finds the open man, Kevin Movald, and he shoots. He scores past Fairman. I thought it was a little bit of a weak goal to go up past Fairman, but goal nonetheless. A nice play, I guess, by Rashica overall to hold up and find the open man. What was your thoughts on that play?
Yeah, well, I mean, the two men you just mentioned, Rashica and then Movald, both came in at halftime, and those substitutions, I think, made a significant impact. And it's part of the reason that you saw that shift in emphasis from Bremen in the second half. They're playing a much higher block, much more aggressive in a lot of ways, more overlapping runs. Augustinson actually had some nice work as well, wide at times. The thing that was funny about this Bremen goal is it's actually almost identical to the Schalke goal. Yeah. There's a little bit of a broken play that goes to the right side of the box, cuts back for a late arriving holding midfielder who then just kind of like one times it into the low. It's like almost an identical
Almost
goal.
identical, yeah.
Yeah, it was
Same
really
size
weird.
net, goalkeeper's just like
so I don't have much more analysis than whatever I gave to the Mascarell one because the same
just
thing.
rewind and listen to that play again.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if Fairman didn't see it quickly enough or what was going on. It was hit with a lot of conviction. It was placed really well. It just, I guess because I felt like Fairman's initial position was close enough to the near post anyway, that from that distance he would have a good chance of getting something on it. But unfortunately it goes in, and like you said, it was coming. It was inevitable. I think there was a moment in like the 52nd minute early on, I think it was off a corner perhaps, where we failed to clear the ball like 3 consecutive times, and then a ball fell for Josh Sargent, who was wide open. He just skied it. Yeah. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is what I was afraid of. They're turning up the pressure, and we're immediately not handling it well. It's a comedy of errors. Harit like tries to kick the ball clear, fails. Becker tries to kick the ball clear, fails. Somebody misses a header, and I'm just like, this is not gonna end well. And
luckily for Fairman, it was standing on his head that he kept it at at 0 at that point. But
he had that one save, but I think it was Osaka on the header.
Yeah,
he came in from Sargent, and that was a good substitution too, because I thought Osaka was causing a lot of problems. And he had a brilliant header to the like upper 90 that Fairman like cat-like save and somehow kept it out. So that was ridiculous. And once again, that's I mean, there's certain goalkeepers that are better at certain things, and I think Ralph Fairman's strength has always been first and foremost shot stopping, and he showed it a couple times in the last few matches.
Yeah, no, I agree about that. Lars says, I wonder what Gross told his players at halftime. It's actually shocking how bad we look in the second half. Not one single shot in that second half. And I think most of it's come down to what you said is like, Werder decided to turn it on. Kofeld, was furious, before going into halftime at his players. And I'm sure he said something to turn him up. But as soon as they turn on the game, it seems like we just backed away. And I don't know if that was the game plan or just Werder is that much better than us in the game. But it did look like we were just trying to defend our lead, which is never a good idea considering how our defense is. And then you knew Bremen kept attacking. I was worried they're gonna get a second goal. They did get a second goal through Eggestein in the last minute of stoppage time. Luckily for VAR, the one time this year that it's been on our side, they called it offside. It's correct by fraction, but it was an offside goal. So we end up 1-1 in that game.
And that goal was sort of a broken play goal as well. So I actually do feel in some way that would have been kind of cruel if we had conceded through that. Yeah. Although, I mean, there's several people that you can point to. Malik Chow didn't cover himself in glory on that play. I actually, when that goal went in, I actually turned off the stream. So for about 30 minutes after that, I thought that we lost until I hopped back on Twitter and realized that VAR had taken it. But I was just like, I can't. I mean, because this had just happened in the Cologne game.
I was like, I guess again.
Yeah, the number of times that we've lost a result in stoppage time, it's 3 or 4 times now this season. It's incredible. And these are the kind of things you just can't have happen. I mean, based on the first half, we should have won this game. And the fact that, I mean, I don't care if Bremen turns up the pressure. The fact that they turned up to the extent where they're out shooting it's like 13-0 or whatever it was in the second half is just inexcusable. There's too much collective talent on the pitch to have that like non-existent of a performance in the second half after what happened in the first half. It's so bad. I do want to talk about what Jake mentioned in the chat real quick.
Yes.
Yeah. So Jake brings up a good point here, which is that when was that? It was like 60-something minute, no 70th minute, maybe right around.
I think it was 65th or something when William came in for him.
Yeah, so
just odd swap right there.
Yeah, so this is before Bremen had scored, correct?
Yeah,
the initial goal. So at this point, we're still winning the game, and so it's very much a defensive substitution where he brings in our new signing for Harit and. I guess I would have preferred to move him centrally and take Ud off because
Ud was ineffective in the game.
I thought Ud was very poor, especially in the first half. Like I thought he killed a lot of moves for us, had some misplaced passes and a lot of backwards passes when it wasn't necessary. And then unfortunately, as Harit's leaving the pitch, once again, petulant, throws his gloves down, making a scene. And you know what? Like, I'm kind of tired of it at this point. Like, you can disagree with the substitution. I disagree with the substitution as well. Yeah. But, like, you didn't play particularly well that game, and you had 70 minutes. He didn't sub you in the 20th minute, and, like, you know what I mean? Like, you got most of the game. Like, this guy needs to grow up at this point.
He was non-existent for the whole game except for the one play that led to a goal.
Yeah. I mean, I'm tired of people protecting this guy just because he's talented sometimes. Yeah. But, like I mean, I like him. This kind of stuff has to stop. These kind of like, I'm going to throw my gloves down because I got substituted after 70 minutes in a game I didn't play well. Like, what are you doing? This is
You're not Neymar. You're not Neymar, all right?
Yeah, we all need to be pulling in the same direction. Like, come on, let's not do this.
Yeah. And William would come on. He would go over to eventually to the right-hand side, play with Becker as a combo there. We did eventually see Huntelaar in this game. He came in the 80th minute or something crazy. Another Katuchu-like substitution there late in the game, ineffective pretty much because he had no time to do anything. So Jake agrees with your comment there.
Huntelaar thing, it's like a Katuchu sub because he comes on when the game's already completely out of control. I mean, it's one thing if the game was something like it was at the end of the first half or early into the second half. By the time Huntelaar comes on, we're just being overrun. We've already made a couple of defensive substitutions. The first thing Huntelaar does is commit a really bad foul for a yellow card to give him a free kick, like right at the edge of the box. And I was like, please don't let them score that. That's not what I want Huntelaar's first contribution to be when he comes back. Hopefully we see more from him in the near future and he has an opportunity to actually impact something.
Maybe in the cup game, because we had a cup game against Wolfsburg here coming up on Wednesday. So, William brings up a good point. And he said he seems he's been struggling since his return from injury, it seems. And I agree with him. It's like ever since that head injury, which he was our best player by far this season, all of a sudden he just is non-existent in the game. And granted, we got some better players around him. And we made that point a couple of pods ago where maybe with better players around, with the other focus, he kind of disappears. And maybe on bad teams, he's really good. I don't know. But it has been strange that, since his injury, he has not been performing the same way. And maybe just take him out of that 10 role, put Harit in the 10 role if he's going to be allowed back on the team, and then find another place for Oud. Maybe Oud goes on the right-hand side and put somebody else on the left hand. Ramon on the left-hand side. I mean, you could do different things here.
I was surprised that Oud got a full 90 in that game, to be honest, compared to some other people.
Laura says, I don't think we've ever managed to defend a 1-0 lead. It's probably been a decade since we did that. But yeah, once when Bremen did score that goal that got taken away, I was like, of course. And then of course Eggestein, right? Because he's a tormentor of Schalke. But I didn't turn it off like you did, but I was upset. And I was like, okay, we lost. You lost. I knew it was going to VAR. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a goal. And they called it back. Like, okay, I'll take it. I mean, 1 point's better than none at this point. But
even without that late winner from Bremen, though, it still kind of feels like a loss based on, you have the early lead for once. You have a pretty dominant first half. Now, once again, arguably different reasons for why it was dominant. But second half, then, I mean, the fact that we had already conceded it and they had that kind of momentum and we just collapsed again in the second half, it was already kind of felt more like a loss than a good point picked up, in my opinion.
And another reason for why it felt like a loss, because we are currently in 18th last spot, and a team that holds the last relegation spot is Arminia Bielefeld, and they're 9 points ahead of us. That's 3 wins that we can't even get 2 wins at the moment. That's seems like a steep hill to climb, and every week it seems like it's getting worse and worse. I mean, if Arminia and Hertha win another game here in the next week or so, it's not going to look pretty, and we obviously got Leipzig on the horizon after Wolfsburg. It's going to be a torturous, next week here for us. And I mean, maybe the substitution to Lars's point was to save him, or somebody said it. Leifson 6 said, save him for the cup game. Maybe Huntelaar's going to get more match time then, but we need to win. We can't. I like the DFB. I mean, if anyone knows, I don't know, Jack, do you know what happens if you win the DFB Pokal? Does anybody get anything?
I thought you qualified for the Europa League.
Yeah,
I believe that is the case. And I don't know if there's restrictions on that if you were to be relegated. I still think
I was going to ask.
If you win the DFB Pokal and you go down, I still think you qualify for the Europa League. So I mean, that would be. This is the question. This is the question now. In my opinion, you absolutely have to prioritize the league.
Yes,
but 100%. Like, if you feel like the league is a lost cause at this point, which is a valid opinion, I don't necessarily feel that way yet, and I don't think we should be approaching it that way yet, because we need to do everything we can, in my opinion, to avoid this. But if that is your opinion, and you do think we're already going down, then it actually may make sense to prioritize the DFB Pokal in the sense that Bayern's not in it anymore. I mean, not that you would expect us to win it in the form that we're in, but like, who knows, the magic of the cup, something could happen. And that revenue from the Europa League could be helpful when we're down in this fight to Bundesliga next season. So, I still think we need to not care about this game against Wolfsburg that much. But at the same time, it's like Leipzig's on the weekend. You're not winning that one either. Might as well just pick one and go at it. You know what I'm saying? So it's complicated.
Mainz did beat Leipzig, but yeah, we're not going to beat Leipzig. I mean, it's going to take a crazy best effort of the season, best effort in the last 2 years to beat Leipzig. I think that's a tall task. I think, and yeah, I mean, you can relegate yourself to or land to the fact that yeah, we're not going to do well. We're not going to get any kind of European spots this year. But the team should not be saying, "Hey, we're done. We're going to fight the Bundesliga." It should not. The Bundesliga should be the main focus at this point, or saving relegation. It should be the main focus at this point. And to hell with DFB Pokal or whatever the hell else. If you think you're going to win it, great. But there's still some pretty great teams in the tournament, despite Bayern being out. Yeah. I mean, I give Holstein Kiel a better chance at this point than we do. So, which is sad to say. Totally fair. But so I think you need to focus. And they certainly could have had a win against Bremen had they. Maybe change the tactics that came out in the second half, made some better substitutions, not necessarily, go defensive. And William is an offensive substitution in a sense, but he's a defender for an attacking player. It doesn't jive to me. And, wait until late to bring on Huntelaar and some other substitutions.
And he wasn't playing as a defender either. That's the thing. So it's not only bringing on a defender for an attacking player. You're bringing on a defender for an attacking player and having the defender play as a midfielder.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times late in that second half where it was becoming a 5-3-2 in defense where Stambouli was dropping into the back line. And there's this midfield three of like a defensive midfield pivot with William and somebody else on either side. Boujaleb, I think, was one of them.
Can we win the Europa League and let's fight the Bundesliga?
I don't know.
Can they get the Champions League bid in the third league?
I mean, yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't care about the Euro. I just want the Europa League qualification revenue is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You got
more than we're getting.
Yeah. I mean, the team isn't showing us a whole lot that would suggest that they're capable of overcoming this deficit at this point. But at the same time, plenty of games to play. So, I mean, I think, our focus still needs to be on the league and we still need to maintain the belief that we can turn it around because technically it's possible and we totally could. And I still defend that there is enough talent in this team to do it. For whatever reason, it's just not happening, but it's there. So.
Yeah, no, I agree about that. And Lars says we're going to win the Pokal, but get relegated at the same time. It could happen, but hopefully neither happen. Well, I don't care about the Pokal. I mean, it would be nice to win a Pokal, but
glorious exit.
Glorious exit, right? Yeah. But today is deadline day. There were some moves we were hoping for, some moves that we thought could happen, may not happen. It was interesting one, right? So I'll share the screen here with the moves that did happen here. Moves that happened and moves that people who came, people who left, right? So first with the guy that exits, we obviously knew Fida Dabisevic his contract was torn up. Nick Tatigui, same thing with him. He was let go from the club. But over this last month or so, Robbie Matanda would move to Stoke City on a loan. The Free Katucci movement would move to Heracles Almelo in the Dutch league, and he would get an assist in his first game there. And they've won their first 2 games since he's been there, but not really necessarily his fault or his contributions, I should say. But the big fish, Ozan Kabak, it was official today, moved to Liverpool on a loan with the option to buy. The option to buy, I think, is for 30 million euros. It's not an obligation; it's an option. But all indications are that Liverpool will take that option at the end of the season. And if they do, it will be a 5-year contract. And I think that it's going to be a loan of something like 1.5 million to 2.5 million euros or pounds, I should say. First off, what are your thoughts on the move about Kabak to Liverpool?
Well, not thrilled about it, obviously.
Sure.
It very much seems to be something that's being done for one of 2 reasons, possibly both. One of which is just the financial situation of the club. We got rid of Weston McKennie because of our need for that that money. And this, I'm sure this is obviously going to be a very helpful sum if we do sell Ozan Kabak. But on the other hand, it almost kind of strikes me as like a relegation thing. Like, we're already going down, let's put him in the shop window and then try to like sell him to somebody. I don't know. It's a little bit frustrating, but whatever. I mean, I believe in him still. He hasn't had the best year for us, and I think he's been at times a little bit immature, but that's going to come with the territory. He's still super young. I believe in his talent, and I think he can have a great career. And Schalke's I don't think it's the place for him at this point in time, unfortunately. I was surprised that he joined us in the first place. from Stuttgart, given how badly we had been performing around that time anyway, because he had been linked to bigger clubs. And so this was probably always going to be a stepping stone. You would have hoped to see, hey, if we had been playing better qualifying for the Champions League, maybe we could actually held on to this guy for a bit. But yeah, I mean, it's probably best for him that he moves on anyway. And, hopefully he gets some time with Liverpool and impresses, and we can get a nice fee for the guy.
Yeah. Last season, he was arguably our best defender, one of our best players overall. I think he had some moments where he just looked like a dominant center back, both offensively and defensively. This year, he's been quite the opposite, struggled a lot, didn't do well in many games, had played okay, but far from what we saw last season. And a lot of it, a great part of that is because the whole team has played poor. So no one is going to look good. There's not many people outside of the goalkeepers that are going to look good during this stretch of games for the team, even them, right? So yeah, it was inevitable that they were going to lose, especially with the massive amount of debt we're in. We were have to start sell some players, and I remember seeing you saying something. I don't remember where it was, but our two biggest assets, going into this year, was Weston McKennie, who we loaned with a option to buy, and now Ozan Kabak, right? So that was almost the inevitable for that to happen. So I'm upset because if the overall does kind of maybe feel like a downgrade. Maybe it's more time for Thiaw. One of the questions we got from Jake on Twitter said, now with Ozan Kabak moving on, do you think this would be more time for Malik Thiaw to get more starting time, or instead of Mustafi? Because not many people. Mustafi's the other person who came from Arsenal, tore up his contract. Arsenal, we get him on a free to the end of the season. First, your thoughts on the possibility of Thiaw getting more minutes at center back, and then on the move for Mustafi.
He could. He's been in a couple of different positions. We saw him come into like defensive midfield late in the game against Bremen.
Yeah,
right back as well.
He's versatile defensively.
Exactly. So, I don't know how much this particular move impacts his playing time. Salif Sane is probably coming back at some point anyway, so he would probably get the nod ahead of Malik Thiaw. And as you said, Malik Thiaw is versatile enough where he's going to get opportunities at various times, I think, regardless. Yeah, the Mustafi thing. So here's the thing for that. I mean, it's nice that this was facilitated in that way so that he could negotiate with us. So they tore up his contract so that we didn't miss the deadline or anything like that, and we don't have to pay a transfer fee for him or anything. And but he's basically just joining us for the end of the season. And like, credit to Schneider for obviously not just giving Kabak away without finding a replacement first. Like, credit to him for actually doing due diligence and bringing somebody else in. But it's just hard to be excited about it because basically what we're doing is just absorbing Arteta castaways. I mean, like, there's a bunch of players that are leaving Arsenal right now in this window. It's Mesut Ozil, it's Kolasinac, it's Mustafi. I think maybe Willock and Maitland-Niles might be on the move as well. Like, there's a bunch of players that are leaving from Arsenal. And so these are not like, hey, it's a great bit of business. Like, look who we just picked up. It's like they don't want these guys, and Arsenal fans are actively celebrating the exodus of Mustafi at the moment.
Yeah.
So what I'll say about this finally is, like, if we get the very best out of this guy for a couple months, his best form, that's a great signing. And it's actually an improvement over Ozan Kabak because at times this guy has shown that he has, great ability. Back, 2014 World Cup and his time in Spain prior to that Arsenal move when his ceiling seemed to be very high. He just hasn't shown it consistently enough in his time at Arsenal. So, I mean, who knows? I hope that he's in better form, or somehow the Bundesliga is more his level than what the Premier League was or whatever, and he can actually help out and contribut. We'll have to wait and see. But on its face, it just seems like, super talented, young, promising center back in the shop window for, a 28-year-old who we're probably actually not going to sign permanently. It's just, it's tough.
Oddly enough, the German international is first time playing for a German team, I think. So that's an interesting one there. I like what Lars says, or I agree with what Lars says about Kabak. It seemed like all season long that Kabak, his head was already joined with another team. It wasn't seem like he was in it completely. And we saw those random red cards and yellow cards almost every game. Something he was doing that seemed like he wasn't quite there. And maybe just me looking at it, or maybe just Lars looking at it, but that's what it seemed like, at least from afar. A name that we thought was going to go. We'll get to that person here. Let's look at the players that did come in. Obviously, we know Kolasinac is in, Mustafi, Huntelaar, William that we talked about last week. Matthew Hoppe did sign an extension through 2023, so at least we're not going to lose him on a free right now. So
yet,
I mean, it's good. It's good. I'm glad about that. Go ahead.
We're not going to lose him on a free yet. I mean,
yet.
It's almost certainly going to happen, but yeah.
So that's a good bit of business there, and I think overall, I kind of like what you said. If if we end up not getting relegated, and all these moves by Schneider are going to look really good, right? Because we got a bunch of players for free: Huntelaar, Mustafi, Kolasinac, William, guys who we don't have to necessarily pay right now. It's going to look good. But if we don't, obviously, it's going to be like, okay. I mean, it's still a bit of decent business there, I think, overall. But I think the one chip that we all thought was certain was going to happen outside of Ibisevic was Nabil Bentaleb. We thought that he was going to move on to another team. That was almost a guarantee to everybody, every person in Schalke Nation. And then deadline day came and went, and he's still a Schalke player. What the heck? I thought there was less like chance of Harit to leave than him. Or I mean, what?
I'm calling it right now. We're gonna have Huntelaar and Nabil Bentaleb in the starting XI against Wolfsburg.
Both are gonna score
in the DFB. As far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, we still have received zero details as to why Nabil Bentaleb was suspended earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Have we? Did I just miss that? We had some indication of what the reason was for Harit, but Bentaleb, it was always kind of a mystery. There didn't seem to be a lot of transparency around that. Yeah. So I don't know, but it's interesting that you mentioned, because like you said, they did say that they expected him to find a club. Is it that no one wants him and we're just like really struggling to find somebody that can move, or
I know there were some Serie A teams that were interested in him, but maybe the prices they wanted less, and Schalke were trying to get too much. I don't know, and they finally said, "Yeah, now we're done. We're good. We're not going to take him." That's the only thing I could think of.
I can't imagine that would be the case though, because they have no plans to play him anyway. So you'll take whatever you can get from him at this point. Otherwise, it's just a dead asset you're going to lose eventually.
Yeah,
it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's first out of all the moves that happened or didn't happen, I thought this was the most strange one, because I thought for certain if he's not playing, he's not even involved in the first team, why are you going to keep the guy around? You're just paying the guy for nothing. Maybe someone can take him off your hands, and I don't know.
And you would have thought it would have happened earlier in the window too, because he had time to prepare for and be talking to clubs and be shopping him out in advance of the window. So once you got like a week or two into it, and you're like, haven't heard anything on that. That's kind of concerning, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. The spare wheel says, is it short-sighted that all the January signs have been only for until the end of the season? I think it's I don't, but a little bit, yeah. But I think there's also that what if we do get relegated and they won't have these players on the books, right? You'd rather go into this fight the Bundesliga if you had to with less players on the books, and then you have some freedom to do something with the youngsters. Maybe, I mean, it's kind of like Arsenal's situation where they're trying to offload people that they can't afford anymore.
I mean, my understanding is that there's been comments that have been made recently that suggest that if we do get relegated, we're fire selling the squad.
Oh yeah, it'd be Schalke 2 basically.
So I mean, you wouldn't have any of these people anyway, is what I'm saying. I mean, like Mustafi wouldn't have come if he was signing more than just the end of the year. You know what I mean? These things are conditional. Huntelaar's retiring. Yeah. So I mean, he's not. So you're not going to sign him either way. And then in Kolasinac, yeah, I mean, he probably still has ambition. I don't know. Maybe he is going to stay here. It doesn't seem likely. It's like he might still have ambitions elsewhere. Who knows? But yeah, it's not fun to think about, because it just sounds increasingly like we're kind of gearing up for this, and it's not going to be pretty, and it's going to be a very different looking team and a whole situation. And
we need to find some wins, and we need to find it fast. Like I said, we're 9 points behind Bielefeld for that last relegation spot. Or even the 15th spot, both those spots are tied at 17, and we're at 9 or whatever, 7. It's not looking good. We need some wins, and the game coming up after Wolfsburg is going to be Leipzig. Oh joy, exactly. I mean, first, the Wolfsburg game is not going to be easy whatsoever. We hope, like you said, maybe we'll probably see some Bentaleb or Huntelaar or some other guys, Baz Douan, maybe some guys we haven't seen during the season. What I definitely don't want to see is the same starting 11. That's just me. Especially we got Leipzig ahead, because like we both said, the league should be the focus, I think. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Wolfsburg on the midweek. But Leipzig, big game. It's not going to be easy at all. Yeah, we saw the recipe of how Mainz did it, and some other teams have done it. They've not won every game. They're still contending for the Champions League spot. I think the title is pretty much said and done at this point. But it's not going to be easy. They got a super amount of talented guys. They're fast. This is what we talked about the last time we played them. They just tore us a bit under Baum's first game. And you got to expect much of the same, right? And the question is, can we keep them under 2 goals? And can we score? I almost rather have Huntelaar start this game, that game, and then the Wolfsburg match. But I mean, it doesn't matter. I want to see him play no matter what. So what are your thoughts about Leipzig coming up? I mean, yeah, exactly.
Like, what do you want me to say? I mean, we don't have.
Is there a weakness on this team that maybe we can exploit?
I mean, if only we had noted Leipzig killer Robbie Matondo, but he's taking his talents to cold, wet nights in Stoke now.
Yeah.
I expect to lose this game. I expect to lose most games we're playing at this point in time. Leipzig is a difficult challenge under any set of circumstances. You would hope that we would improve over our performance in the Hinrunde, just because, as you said, that was extremely early into Manuel Baum's tenure. He had 2 days to prepare for that game before he got thrust in there. So, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot that he could have done. And maybe now that we're facing them on the back of Christian Gross being here for a little bit and getting something going, maybe he'll have something. But I mean, it's Bayern last game, right? And then it's Leipzig, it's Dortmund. This is not a good run of games for us. We're probably going to lose.
These next 4 games are all against top 10 teams: Wolfsburg, Leipzig, Bremen, Berlin, and Dortmund.
You need the Bremen and Union Berlin points. We already screwed the Berlin. I mean, it's just it's becoming increasingly difficult for me to be optimistic. And
we're playing that gauntlet again that we were worried about in the beginning of the season. Now we're here in the Rückrunde, excuse me, and doing it all over again. Right?
Life comes at you fast.
It does, and it does. We have a more important question, though, that came from the chat here, and I think it's important that we answer it here. Jack, what bourbon are you drinking these days? I may need to buy stock in that brand with how Schalke are playing currently.
At the moment, I'm actually drinking red wine, Spanish wine.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it looks like bourbon, and that is because this is a glass from it's called Cooper and Thief, which is a wine that's aged in bourbon barrels. So the glassware that came with the bottle is sort of like a bourbon glass.
Oh, okay.
So nice. I'm sorry for the confusion. Jake, DM me or something. I'll give you a list of bourbons you can look at. You can't have. I'm going to start rambling longer on that than I normally do on most things soccer related. If you get me on that, so.
Oh man, yeah. The game's not going to be pretty coming up on the weekend. Probably either game, really, honestly. Curious what you guys think about these couple games coming up here, the Pokal and against Leipzig coming up on the weekend. Jack, anything else you want to talk about before we get on out of here?
No, that's it. On to the next one. Pray for some cup magic.
Pray for some magic. So anything can happen in these Pokal matches. Obviously, we saw with Holstein Kiel against Bayern. Anything can happen if you do show up. So we'll see what happens against Wolfsburg. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you sign up for the Schalke US newsletter. Not only to get info on the club and all the fan clubs around the US and Canada, but you'll even get information on our podcast. So just submit your email address and you'll get them monthly, as I mentioned. Keep tuning in each week as we bring you the latest from the Royal Blues. If there are any topics you would like us to discuss, just tweet us at SchalkeMerica. We'd like to give a special shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you for all the questions and comments tonight. You guys have brought it again. Loving it. Jack, where can our followers find you on social media?
At JM Mangan, JMMangan on Twitter.
It's not MAGAN. Nope. Right on. And as always, you can follow me at R_KHARMAN on pretty much anywhere, Twitter, anywhere. So make sure you do that. Until the next podcast comes, my friends, stay ready. Have your drink ready. To Pokal Wednesday, Leipzig Saturday. We'll talk to you then. Tschüss.